Hi, I'm Salman Ahmed. I'm a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment. I'm working on a bipartisan task force that's looking at how to make U.S. foreign policy work better for the American middle class. The reason Carnegie is doing this research is because Americans are divided and uncertain right now about the U.S. role abroad. That uncertainty not only makes it harder for the U.S. to advance its interests around the world, but also creates serious and potentially dangerous ripple effects across the globe. One way for policymakers to rebuild broad-based and enduring domestic support for U.S. foreign policy is by showing how the proposed way forward could better advance the economic well-being of America's middle class. That's especially important to do right now because even in a booming economy, too many working families still struggle to sustain a middle-class standard of living. So it's easier said than done to create a foreign policy that works better for the American middle class. You need the foreign and domestic policy communities, ideally to be working closer together, but they operate almost separately in government. Foreign policy professionals, and I'm one of them, make assumptions about how the different aspects of foreign policy impact working families, but we don't test those assumptions often enough. Foreign policy professionals say often that policy making is ultimately about weighing the difficult trade-offs, but we're not clear enough and public enough about what those trade-offs are for working families and how we're making choices among them. We also say that it's important to include all key stakeholders in the debate. But we don't reach out beyond the foreign policy establishment often enough to the people at the state and local levels who are fighting every day to create good-paying middle-class jobs and address the challenges that working families confront. So Carnegie convened a group of former policymakers from past administrations, Democratic and Republican alike, who recognize that these gaps exist and want to try to help address some of them. We're trying to do that through conducting case studies in a number of states, and ultimately then producing a final report in 2020. We decided to do our first case study on Ohio, working together with researchers at The Ohio State University because of Ohio's economic and political diversity. It represents a microcosm of the country itself, and it's long been known as a bellwether state. In this first report on Ohio, we show how going back to the way things have been for the last several decades is not really an option. That approach left too many communities and workers behind in a changing global economy. Yet many of the big policy changes being pursued now, such as the imposition of tariffs, address only some of the problems while creating new ones. There are no silver bullets. Many of the challenges that America's middle class confronts have been gathering for decades. We need a comprehensive approach that goes well beyond the imposition of tariffs. We need to be answering hard questions, not just about trade, but about the trade-offs that exist across a broad range of areas. These include, how are we defining the national economic interests to be advanced through foreign policy? What are we doing about the economic strategies that need to accompany the trade agenda? What's our national approach to foreign direct investment? How do we square the different trade-offs that arise from defense spending? And how do we explain the costs and benefits that come with American global leadership? The data in this report is rich, and it should provide policymakers with food for thought. But we'll be rounding out the agenda through the next case studies we conduct. The next one will be in Colorado. And at the end of the process, we'll be offering concrete recommendations in 2020.